I'm Polly. I'm a mom, a wife, a pelvic floor physical therapist, and founder of No Kegels University. I have helped thousands of women stop leaking, enjoy intimacy, and feel proud of their bodies, even after having kids. After years of listening to women wonder why no one talks about leaking, how they should properly recover after having a baby, and that pleasurable intimacy is possible, I started to get real frustrated because I believe that no mom or woman should struggle when there are answers. It became my mission to shed light on the lack of postpartum care and the lack of discussion on issues that relate to women and their health, even if they can be uncomfortable sometimes. It also became my mission to change the conversation on women's health, the pelvic floor, and more. Here we go. Episode 25, The Secret to Stop Leaking. I don't know about you, but when I read or see a podcast episode or see a TikTok or a reel come across my screen, and they say things like, the secret to making more money, the secret to having a better life, the secret to getting more done, I am always eager to click. And I think in the back of my head, I somehow am convinced that I am going to read something new, I'm going to hear something new, that a piece of information is going to be presented differently, and it's just going to truly be the secret to whatever it is that they're talking about. And while I am incredibly grateful for you listening to this episode, I am incredibly hopeful that this is something that you haven't heard before. Now, you might have heard me talk about it before, but I will say that this is one of the secrets, or at least the secret to the first step on your no leakage journey that no one talks about. And I'm also very hopeful that as I walk you through this, that you will begin to understand why it is the first step. And hopefully by the time we're done, that you know that it's not a secret. And I want you to share it with the whole world because I'm trying to do the same thing. So let's start with the answer. Scar. It's scar tissue. The problem is that doing Kegels probably, or even maybe, might help you stop leaking, but you have to take a look at it from a different perspective. And that perspective is that your muscles need to be able to move through their full range of motion before they can become strong. And in order to strengthen a muscle, that muscle has to contract, relax, lengthen. It has to work hard. It has to become tired so it can break down and become stronger. That's a fact that we can all agree on. And then if you take that a little bit further and say, okay, well, let's say you're trying to increase how much weight that you can squat. Well, you have to probably squat a little more weight than what you're used to. So maybe besides your body weight, maybe you add 20 to 30 pounds, whether that's in a dumbbell, whether that's in a barbell, and you work on squatting it. And let's say your muscles are good to go in the sense that you can squat the full depth. And over time, you get stronger and stronger. Well, what if we have someone who can't squat that full depth and they keep attempting to add weight and they keep failing at it? Or maybe they try changing their foot position and they try turning their toes out because they read that that was their best squat position for their body type. If you haven't heard this, it is going around. And while there might be some truth to it, it might be a little more oversold than what depth is actually there in it, no pun intended. But if this person keeps trying all these techniques to get stronger, trying to improve their squat, but really just trying to improve their muscles, but they can't squat that full depth, do you think that their outcome is going to be similar to the one who can squat the full depth, who can keep asking more of their body by increasing the weight that they squat over time? The answer is no. And while I really don't believe in taking one person's journey in health and comparing it to someone else's, you can at least agree with me that in order to improve the strength and in order to improve the amount of weight that you're squatting, you have to have that full range of motion available to you. And this is the same premise, the same idea, the same concept, the same thing that applies to strengthening your pelvic floor so that you stop leaking. I know that you need to strengthen your pelvic floor to stop leaking. I know that, and you know that. But where people go wrong and where the frustration comes into play is they keep trying to strengthen their pelvic floor, and they keep trying to strengthen their pelvic floor. And what ends up happening is they end up quitting. They end up thinking that it's not possible for them. And they continue down this journey of frustration and almost some level of acceptance that this is not going to get better, that everything that they have heard is true. After you have a baby, your body just goes down the toilet. After you have a baby, you're probably going to pee your pants for the rest of your life, so you can give up any ideas of jumping or working out or even getting that body back. It's just not possible. Or even some of that martyrdom where you blame your kiddos for the effects on your body because of the type of birth that you had. And this is where I think that it needs to stop. This is why I don't think that your scar or working on your scar needs to be a secret anymore. I think that this needs to be mainstream and that we all need to know about it so that we can get a stronger pelvic floor. We're now speeding up people's journeys with strengthening their pelvic floor and getting the life that they used to have that didn't involve leaking all the time, that didn't keep them from doing the things that they wanted to do. And I mean, really, the list could go on and on. And I kind of feel like a downer on this, and I don't want to be, but I hope that you see that this isn't a secret. It shouldn't be a secret. And it's one of those concepts that I am really hopeful that you'll take and you will blast to the entire world. Please, 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 please. So if you haven't heard me talk about the scar, let me tell you a little more where this comes into play in my analogy of doing a squat and not having full range of motion. So if you're trying to strengthen your pelvic floor and you don't have full range of motion available to you, it will be a problem in the sense that it will delay how long or halt altogether despite your efforts in trying to strengthen your pelvic floor so that you can stop leaking. The tough thing about, and no pun intended on that, but the tough thing about scar tissue is we actually need it. It really is important that we have it. Otherwise, we would still have gaping wounds. I had a C-section, and while I don't care for the effects of scar tissue that it's had on me, I am grateful because it allowed me to have a second kiddo because my body utilized that scar tissue. Just like if you're listening to this and you've had an episiotomy or you have torn, your body utilized scar tissue. And as someone who has worked with a lot of women who have had torn pelvic floors for other reasons that have not stayed stitched or have become infected, I promise you, not knowing the pain and the agony that causes, that's a blessing to you too. So while I probably am going to sound like I'm going to bash on scar tissue here, I don't really mean to. I think maybe the issue is that we don't understand scar tissue and how we should be interacting with scar tissue. So if you've had an episiotomy or if you've torn, this secret to stop leaking, this applies to you. That scar that is filling in the gaps and allowing those tissues to heal after they've been torn, after they've been cut, that scar tissue can spread and it can be very tough. It can act like super glue. And so if you start thinking about this in how this might interfere with how your muscles work, well, those muscles need to contract and relax and lengthen. So if you now have a section of those muscles that are stiff, that it's more than just a tiny area, and that almost freezes your pelvic floor into the same state that it was while it was healing, you can see why it's not really going to matter a lot of what you've done in terms of your effort to get that pelvic floor stronger so you can stop leaking until that scar tissue is made supple and soft again so that those muscles can go back to having that full range of motion. Just like our squat analogy, we need that full range of motion for there to be change in our muscle strength, especially over time, which will end up meaning that you won't leak anymore. So going back to this scar idea, let me tell you a little bit more. I happened to say this to a patient of mine a couple weeks ago while I was trying to explain why all of her efforts, and hers were many, probably the first person that I've met that I truly feel that she has exhausted every option except working on her scar. And when I was explaining scar tissue to her, and after I assessed her pelvic floor and we got done, I told her, I said, it almost feels like the whole bottom of your pelvic floor, it's frozen. Like that scar has created, almost like a skating rink. It's so firm. It's not soft and supple like it would be if I pressed on your calf. And she said, like ice? You mean it's almost like Elsa did her trick with her hand and froze the whole place? I had to giggle because that's true. That is such a great analogy and something that if you have kids, I'm sure you've seen Frozen and you've seen Elsa take her hands and do the thing that she does, and ice just covers or layers everything. That's a lot of the times what happens with the pelvic floor after there has been an episiotomy or after you have torn with childbirth. That scar tissue almost layers everything like a sheet of ice, and you can imagine that pelvic floor is going to have a hard time fighting against it, because even if you had a strong pelvic floor going into that delivery, because that pelvic floor also just lengthened enough to be able to deliver a baby. So it's already in a very lengthened, weakened state because of what it's just had to do. And that doesn't mean, please don't take this the wrong way, that you can't ever get strong again. You can. But where the issue lies is that scar tissue has got to move. It has to. Because again, you can go try all the Kegels in the world. You can go try all the squats in the world. But if you don't have that full range of motion, if those muscles aren't soft and supple like every other muscle group in your body, then it's really hard to expect that they're going to be able to perform under all the exercise and the workouts that you're asking of those muscles in order to create that strength. So with this, I know this episode was maybe a little bit different, but I just don't know if I have felt that I can ever drive this fact home enough, because there's sometimes in my office that I'll have 4 new patients in a day, or someone will message me in the DMs and they'll say things like, well, I've tried everything. I've even tried Kegel. So what are you going to do for me? And my first question always is, and I know it takes them aback, and I know it's not what they're expecting, but I always ask them, okay, well, tell me, did you tear or did you have an episiotomy? And I'll even add, it doesn't matter how little, it doesn't matter how long ago, did you have one? And the answer is always yes. And then I'll ask them, okay, great. Have you worked on that scar tissue? And they'll say, nope, nobody's ever brought it up. Why should I do that? And then I proceed to tell them a shortened version of everything that I just shared with you. So I want you to understand this for yourself. I want you to share this with your friends and your sisters. So the homework for today is 2 things. Number 1, share this with your friends, share this with your sisters. If you want to share it on social media, I would be ever so grateful. But again, think of how many women have tried so hard to strengthen their muscles and they just haven't gotten to where they wanted to, especially because there's so many programs out there that promise a stronger pelvic floor and no leakage. But this is the missing piece. This is the secret that I don't think needs to be a secret anymore. And the second piece is I have an entire mini course on this. It's called the No Leakage Starter Kit, and I want to give it to you for free. So check the show notes, No Leakage Starter Kit, and it walks you through how to find your scar, how to work on your scar, the different techniques. And feel free to share it with your sisters, your friends, whomever. And remember, you're an heiress and a queen and everything in between. If you enjoyed this episode or even wondered if I can help you, check the show notes for more details. And to see what else I'm up to, follow me on the socials at BeyondTheV by Polly. Because I'm changing the conversation on women's health, the pelvic floor, and more, I still need your help. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend or two. See you next week.